Soon I saw a dark shape in the water. I was further towards the other end of the castle. Something's moving between the trees.
Oh my God, it's moving!
A sonar screen on a boat in Loch Ness just recorded something that sonar experts can't explain. Something locals have been calling Nessie for nearly a century.
It had a small head, like a needle or a snake, magnified about 10, 15, 20 times. In the distance, it was difficult to see.
A local skipper named Sean McLeod has been running boats across this lake for over a decade. In that time, he's logged more than 200 contacts, shapes moving beneath his hull that don't match any fish known to live in the loch. Then one of his readings came back showing something almost as big as his boat, sitting deep, moving with purpose, alive. He sent the footage to Raymarine, the company that built his sonar. Their engineers reviewed it and couldn't explain it. Their best guess was a large fish or marine mammal, but there are no marine mammals in Loch Ness, and there is no known freshwater fish in Scotland that produces a sonar return that size. That recording is real. The equipment was verified by the manufacturer, and the shape on that screen has never been identified. But here's the thing that makes Loch Ness different from every other lake monster story on the planet. This isn't one guy with one reading. This is 1,500 years of people seeing the same thing in the same water. Pilots, police officers, boat captains, military personnel, all describing the same shape. A long neck, humped back, smooth fast movement, in a lake so dark you can't see past 6 inches beneath the surface.
The best view I ever had was the very first in 1934. I saw the head, the neck, and the huge body, which I'd say was about 30 feet long.
Locals say it surfaces at dawn and dusk. Fishermen say it follows boats. People who live on the shore say they've learned not to swim after dark, not because of the cold, but because of what moves in the water when the light goes down. Some families won't let their children near certain parts of the shoreline, not out of superstition, out of experience passed down through generations that you don't question if you grew up hearing it. In 1987, they tried to settle it once and for all. 24 boats lined up across the full width of the loch, a wall of sonar, $1 million operation, led by a skeptic named Adrian Shine who wanted to kill the legend with data. The sonar picked up 3 massive contacts, deep, moving. One operator said on the record they were looking at something larger than a shark and comparable in size to a large whale, in a freshwater lake, in Scotland. They never identified what made those contacts. Nobody has since. Shine spent the rest of his career trying to explain those 3 readings with natural causes, thermoclines, fish schools, sediment clouds. He tested everyone, and to his credit, he was honest about the result. Some of the readings could be explained, not all 3. The uncomfortable ones stayed uncomfortable. Stay with me. Because the DNA evidence that came 30 years later made everything stranger. In 2018, a genetics professor named Neil Gemmell flew from New Zealand to Scotland to end the argument with science. His method was simple. If something large is living in Loch Ness, it's shedding cells into the water every time it moves, breathes, or feeds. Collect enough water, sequence the DNA, and you'll know everything that lives in the loch. The water doesn't lie. His team collected over 250 samples, every depth, every section, the most comprehensive DNA sweep of any lake in history. No plesiosaur DNA. You can exhale on that one. No shark, no catfish, no ancient reptile hiding in a Scottish lake since the Ice Age. Every headline ran with "Science kills the Loch Ness Monster," except the same study found massive quantities of eel DNA. Everywhere, at every depth, in amounts so high that Gemmell himself said the giant eel theory may be worth exploring in more detail. And then he admitted something in the paper that should have gotten way more attention. There remains the possibility that there is something present that we did not detect because we sampled in the wrong places at the wrong time. That's the scientist who flew halfway around the world to kill the legend admitting, in writing, that his own study might have missed whatever's down there. The DNA didn't prove the monster exists, but it didn't do what it was supposed to do either. It was supposed to close the file. The file is still open, and that's the part that bothers the scientific community more than a clear yes or no ever would. A confirmed monster can be studied. A confirmed hoax can be filed away. But evidence that sits in the middle, too strong to dismiss, too incomplete to confirm, is the kind that keeps a case alive for decades, which is exactly what happened, and the witnesses who've been keeping it open won't go away. If it were just sonar and eel DNA, you could probably walk away from this story. But the people who've seen it aren't the people you'd expect to make things up. The earliest account goes back to the year 565. An Irish monk named Columba reached the River Ness and was told a man had been dragged under the water and killed by something large. You can call that a religious parable. You can call it folklore. But the description, large, aggressive, living in the same body of water people still report sightings in today, has stayed consistent for nearly 15 centuries. In the 1930s, a couple named George and Lillian Spicer watched something cross the road near the loch, something with a long neck, a heavy body, and movement that didn't match any animal either of them could name. Their description set the template that nearly every witness since has independently repeated: long neck, humped back, silent, fast, smooth. Researchers who've studied decades of reports found patterns that random hallucinations wouldn't produce. Most sightings happen at dawn or dusk, calm water, no wind, glass flat surface where anything that breaks it is instantly visible, and the sightings cluster around specific parts of the loch, particularly near the ruins of Urquhart Castle, where more reports concentrate than anywhere else on the water. If people were imagining things, you'd expect reports scattered randomly across all conditions. They're not. They cluster around specific times, specific weather, and specific parts of the loch. Steve Feltham has been watching this water full-time since 1991, over 30 years camped on the same stretch of shoreline, and still hasn't walked away. He holds the Guinness World Record for the longest-running vigil searching for the creature. That's not a man chasing publicity. That's a man who looked at this lake and decided the question was worth his entire adult life. Locals who've lived on the shore their whole lives will tell you things that don't make it into the official register. They'll tell you the water goes wrong sometimes. Dead calm, then awake with no boat behind it. They'll tell you fish scatter from certain areas for no visible reason. They'll tell you their grandparents said the same things about the same spots on the water. None of that is proof. All of it is pattern. And 1,500 years of the same pattern is the kind of evidence science doesn't have a comfortable box for. So if the DNA says eels and the witnesses say long neck and humps, here's the obvious question. Could Nessie just be a really, really big eel? This is the theory serious scientists are most comfortable with. European eels live in the loch right now. They migrate from the Sargasso Sea thousands of miles away. And here's the part that should surprise you. In the entire history of marine biology, no human has ever witnessed a European eel reproducing. Not once. We know where they go. We don't know what happens when they get there. For a fish we've studied for centuries, we know shockingly little about what they're capable of becoming. European eels can live for decades. Some researchers believe individuals trapped in landlocked bodies of water, unable to migrate back to the sea to breed, may just keep growing. There are reports from Scandinavian lakes of eels reaching 5 or 6 feet. Nobody's documented one at 15. But nobody's proven it can't happen either. And the loch itself gives that theory room to breathe. Loch Ness sits on the Great Glen Fault, a 100-kilometer fracture running through the Scottish Highlands that created one of the deepest freshwater trenches in Europe. The loch drops to over 750 feet in places. That's deeper than the North Sea. Cold, dark, peat-black water where visibility drops to inches. A lake that size, that deep, that cold, could sustain something that would starve in shallower water. So, could one grow to 10 feet? 20? Could a population trapped in a deep, cold, food-rich lake for thousands of years produce something bigger than any eel ever recorded? Maybe. But the theory cracks in 3 places. Eels don't have necks. Witnesses describe a vertical neck rising above the surface, 3-4 feet out of the water like a periscope. An eel moves horizontally. That's not how their bodies work. Eels don't produce sonar returns the size of a whale. The 1987 contacts showed something massive and solid in deep water. Even a 20-foot eel wouldn't register like that. And eels don't create V-shaped wakes moving at speed across calm water with no visible body above the surface. That's the movement of something with real mass, something heavy pushing water aside. The eel theory explains the DNA. It doesn't explain the sonar. It doesn't explain the necks. And it doesn't explain the wakes. Whatever is making those, it's been doing it long enough that the people who live on this lake don't argue about whether it's real. They argue about what it is. For decades, the Loch Ness search had a pattern. Somebody would claim a sighting. Scientists would show up. They'd scan the water, find nothing definitive, and leave. Headlines would say, "Monster debunked." The locals would shrug. And a few months later, somebody else would see something, and the whole cycle would start again. 2025 changed the conversation. Not with proof, with volume. 4 official sightings were logged in the first half of the year, more than all of 2024 combined. 1 captured on a drone, another on a long-range research camera. The sighting register confirmed all 4 as credible. Then in May, the largest coordinated search since 1987 hit the water. AI-enhanced webcams running 24 hours a day, remotely operated vehicles scanning the trenches, hydrophones listening for sounds beneath the surface, thermal drones scanning at first light. The search didn't find the monster. Nobody expected it to. But the hydrophones picked up low-frequency sounds from deep water that didn't match any cataloged source in the loch. Not fish, not boats, not geological activity. The thermal drones recorded surface disturbances in areas where no vessels were operating, and McLeod kept adding sonar contacts to his collection the whole time the search was running. Professor Tim Coulson at Oxford was asked directly whether a large undiscovered species could be living in the loch. He said it was highly improbable. He didn't say impossible. And that gap between improbable and impossible is exactly where this story has lived for 1,500 years. Loch Ness has been investigated more than any body of water on the planet. More sonar, more cameras, more scientists, more money. And after all of it, the scientific consensus is clear. No definitive proof of a large unknown creature has ever been produced, but no investigation has ever explained the 1987 contacts. No theory fully accounts for McLeod's 200 readings. The eel theory covers some of it. The rest stays open. And the loch itself, water so dark with peat that visibility drops to inches, cold enough that organic matter barely decays, a single outlet to the sea through the River Ness, sitting above a geological fault that runs the length of the highlands, is built to keep secrets the way a vault is built to keep gold. In 565, a monk saw something in this water. In 1933, a couple watched something cross a road next to it. In 1987, 24 boats found 3 things they couldn't explain. In 2018, a geneticist found DNA he didn't expect. In 2025, 4 people saw something the sighting register called credible. Same lake, same descriptions, same unanswered questions. 1,500 years apart. The fishermen who work this water don't debate it. The families on the shore don't treat it as a question. Steve Feltham doesn't treat it as a question. They treat it the way the villagers around Lake Iliamna treat what's in their water, as a fact of life that outsiders haven't caught up with yet. We haven't found it yet, but we haven't explained it away either, and that's the part that won't let you go.